Uh, yeah. Um, yeah, I tried to start writing some stuff to you going, man, I think there's some cool theory stuff for us to sync up on at some point soon.
Hmm.
Uh, Maybe that happens in a week. I don't know. Anyway, it's just a very simple thing. I think a lot of stuff that people talk about that it's about, the energy and the blah 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 and like the intuitions and so on. I'm starting to think that a lot of this is just absolutely literally interoception. And that the basic design of the Western ego is dissociation from interoception.
Hmm. I feel like at times when I've like really felt people's energy, it sometimes feels like I'm feeling like also like fields that are in the space between us. It's like as if I can see a magnetic field around us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't have a deep theory for that part. But I think it's something like, I think that may be a mental interface that we use in order to make sense of the dynamics that are happening between people in terms of what affects the viscera internally.
okay. Yeah, yeah. So you're still counting that sort of as interoception, or it's like a map. Um, it's like a HUD on your interoception.
Yeah, 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 more like that. Like I'm not calling the field sense interoception, but I think interoception may be to all these fields what electric charge is to the electric field. Um,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and one thing that's become really clear as I've been paying attention to this more and more is that um, it's uh, it is absolutely, obviously the basis of what good and bad means. This is
Yeah.
how we tell, like, it's your mother's.
Oh, oh, this is really funny. Okay, so like, um, there's something, uh, there's something called the model of hierarchical complexity. Maybe this is too many details, but basically, like, it's a developmental stage theory that is very agnostic to what type of system you're talking about. Like, um, so it applies to amoeba and stuff, and you can sort of rate any system on it. And it's like some of the lowest level ones are basically like it can steer at all. Like bacterium, or sorry, not even steer, but just like but the bacterium that's like, don't really like the gradient here. It's got too much toxins, not enough sugar. That's all right. Right? It's like it doesn't even steer. It just wiggles if things are bad and doesn't wiggle so much if things are good. And so it tends to be in good like local
Right.
environments more often. And so I'm something like imagining somehow that like this basic good bad sense, this yes no, this
Hmm.
yay bleh, like valence sense, right? Is sort of like the lowest level of cognition for a living organism. Like you could create a calculating organism that kind of doesn't have this, but for a living organism, this is like necessarily the fundament around which all of this complexity is built. And we've kind of been like divorcing ourselves from like our connection with reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then trying to like reconstruct it cognitively. Um, which
Mhm.
is tricky because like the cognitive system can induce experiences that change your interoceptive experiences. That seems to be a large part of how they work.
Right. Well, and we've talked about this in terms of spin.
Right, right. Um, but like one of the things that I'm noticing is that a lot of the anxiety around rule following that I personally experience
Mm.
um, is something like a cognitive attempt to mimic the ability to sort out how I tell whether something is a good fit for me or not.
Mm. Hmm.
Whereas if I do something, and there's a piece of magic here I do not understand, but I'm watching it work, which is really cool.
Hmm.
For some magical reason, if I hill climb based on going away from stuff that feels viscerally bad and towards stuff that is viscerally good, everything works. Now, why I can't get trapped in local optima that are globally terrible, I don't know why. Maybe in theory I can. But what I keep finding is what happens instead is if I can see the pathway, sometimes it doesn't feel like, oh, my knowledge, my conscious knowledge is getting integrated properly. It's more like my conscious knowledge says something, and then magic happens, and my visceral response has a very particular way of orienting to it.
That's like a yes. It's like, oh yeah.
Right. It's
Oh, I
not,
could
oh
go
yes,
all the
that's a
way
good
across
point.
town to like meet up with this friend I haven't seen in a while. Yeah, all the way across town sounds like a great idea.
Right. Right. But it's different from a kind of I want to call it egoic excitement
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
feel like but I'm starting to get something structural like the reason that ego is an issue is because the way that it works seems to be something like it is trying to calculate specifically without reference to the interoceptive sense of what is going on, and in particular, good and bad.
Huh. That feels I'm like trying to bring that in contact with the model that we started laying out years ago in response to Cutler's stuff that got us the original spin
Hmm.
insight. And I'm sort of like, because like at that time we were talking about like the ego being kind of the layer that mediates between the superego and id. And maybe what's going on is just that the ego has gotten so caught up in the the super egoic externalized sense of good and bad that it sort of doesn't it forgets to track the bottom up one at all. But I'm sort of like, oh,
Yeah, uh, I, I mean, I think there's a problem that might be shaped a little bit like. I want to caveat this with something like these thoughts don't feel really refined yet. I'm noticing that I have something that seems to be working for me, and I'm
mhm.
trying to translate it. But I don't have a theoretical thing that I'm going, ah, this is the theory. I'm going to march
Yeah,
ahead with.
totally. That makes sense.
Um,
Yeah.
so, with that caveat, my impression is that uh, there's something that is a little bit like the hostile telepath problem,
Hmm.
where referencing the interoceptive stuff gets attacked, maybe by superego stuff. I don't know, but there's like some sort of mimetic thing that happens
Hmm.
that actively discourages some element of pointing at the interoceptive dimension. Um, and so what
Hmm.
you end up with is an egoic mediator that tries to come up with a simulation of what would be good.
Oh, hmm. Right. And then the question of why is like a separate question. I remember that the first couple times in Waterloo, like some people tried to get me to like answer their question of like what something felt like in my body, and it was very threatening. Um, Now that's of course when I'd already grown up with the entire lifetime I'd had thus far. But I think it is also interesting that like part of what was threatening was not just that I might listen to my body, but that I might like sort of have to report it. Like that I would sort of be exposed or something.
Yeah, something. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a spot where I can tell there are gaps in the theory.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just struck with a visceral sense that there's a bunch here that is clearly right and relieving
Hmm.
for how I work inside,
Hmm.
and that uh, something like theory is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Don't rush it. I wanted to say one more thing, and that is that the reason why you don't get trapped in local optima is probably just that the dimensionality is actually very high. And in high dimensional spaces, it's really hard to have local
Yeah,
optima. Or yeah,
yeah, yeah. It seems
they're
with
all just saddles
my
on some other dimension.
yeah, as I turn up interoceptive sensitivity and as I integrate it with the global workspace of consciousness more,
Mm-hmm.
finding that I think it is correct to view it as approximately analogous to a sense, like smell.
Hmm.
There are good and bad smells, but it would be very weird to say that the purpose of your nose is to tell whether something smells good or bad. That's not a terrible approximation, but man, the sense of smell is so rich, and most people don't pay much attention to
Right,
it.
right, right.
And there is something that if you project it onto the good bad spectrum, you learn something of real functional value.
Mm-hmm.
But what it means to learn whether something smells good or bad is that you actually need to pay attention to more of the texture that isn't in that evaluative linear.
Right, right. If you try to just train yourself on good bad, you like you somehow don't get to even learn good bad.
Right, right. Because it's derived. It's derived from other information.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Um, cool. And so then, so this is a sense, you're seeing it as like a sense. I feel like there was something else you were going to say about that. So why is the interoceptive sense then the one that, like, if all the senses have a good bad sense, why is the interoceptive one the one that like steers?
That's a great question.
I mean, maybe like something like the interoceptive sense is where your experience of your like muscle potentials are.
I don't know if it's about muscles. When I say interoceptive, I mean things like the organs of your internal torso. I mean this quite literally
No,
in
yeah,
the
yeah. Well, I mean, my muscles are also inside me, but yeah. Um,
I think it's specifically not a muscular sense. Debatably, this might include the diaphragm. Um,
sure, but the diaphragm is like an edge case of
yeah,
muscle.
like I think that there's a kind of place where people skip over interoception when they're trying to feel their breath. For instance, they're actually feeling the muscles, their intercostal muscles on their
On the
mandibular
outside.
cage, and the yes, the generally the outside layer with the more peripheral nervous system and
Mm.
the voluntary muscles and the tactile senses on the surface of the body, enormously different from feeling the level at which your soft, squishy, super sensitive organs are constantly being moved around by all of how your organs are adjusting and how the air is expanding, etc.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, which is really striking if you think of things like nausea, which are not hard to track, but most people are not experiencing these sensations in the same place that nausea is felt.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I have a YouTube video about this. Is like I had this experience of being like I was trying to look in my head, like, and sort of over there for like, what did it feel like inside me? And then I sort of realized I could just attend to that patch of space the same way I can also like attend to this patch of space and be like, what do I sense in this patch of space? It was a very non-dual thing.
Yeah,
The video is called something like "Turns out my insides are in the world."
yeah, yeah. I get a sense of something like non-duality is not hitting me as hard with this experience as it
Mhm.
has with some others, but it feels much more grounded and very practical and very in the world, and it has a blurring of the boundaries, like which I guess is kind of non-dual, but it's a sense of like it's much more transparent the way in which I've been operating as though I am a person interacting with the world, and that has a sharpness to it, like a rigidity.
Mhm.
And if I'm operating by the interoceptive stuff, I don't need to do that.
Because it's not so much a mental icon. It's like you're just being the way more multidimensional and recursive, I mean that word very loosely, uh, like self-modeling in that sense. You're just being the that and flowing downhill.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I'm noticing mother's love feels good, not mother's love feels bad. Go towards mother's love. Turns out that feels good.
yep.
And then insert magic here, everything works.
Cool. Well, I'll try it out and let you know how it goes.
Yeah. One other quick note I should note is that my experience when I tried to share this with other people is that there is some preliminary stuff that can be a little bit tricky because, as far as I can tell, most people can't just turn on their interoceptive sense
Mm-hmm.
because they are so used to isolating that part of their nervous system from their consciousness. So it actually feels a fair bit like when they point their awareness inside of their body, they feel nothing. And it has
Mm-hmm.
a lot of quality that I think is very similar to when you walk into a dark room and your eyes don't adjust and your eyes don't adjust and it just takes a while of trying.
Hmm. Cool.
Um, yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Awesome.